Death is a scary topic to think about. Now, I'm not dying that I know of, but I'm sure many of you watching this video probably thought that Eternal Blue sunk its teeth into the dust quite some time ago. In reality, it was just sleeping, but it is very much still alive, and 2 years later it is very, very different. I won't bore you all with the details as to why it took so long to release this update, but just know that the less complicated side of the equation is that striking equilibrium between working fast and touching grass isn't always the easiest thing in the world, and it's extraordinarily easy for one to consume the other. Now, originally I had hoped to be much further along by now. After all, the last devlog I put out was over 2 years ago. Regardless, a lot has changed. Let's get into it. Because it's been so long, I might as well talk about what's new, and the answer to that is, in short, everything. I actually scrapped just about the entire game and reworked things to be more efficient, dynamic, and fun to play. That's right, if you played the January 2022 demo and remember the janky parkour with half-baked wall running and the worst vaulting imaginable, then you're in for a treat, because if you couldn't tell by the intro sequence and B-roll, everything is totally different. One of the first things I did regarding this rework was a new approach to how I detect ledges. Traditionally, many people will tell you to detect ledges by firing a trace forward to find a wall, and then down from the hit location to find a ledge. However, this approach brought many issues, such as the inability to detect ledges of thin platforms. Instead, it's actually better to cast a trace down in front of the player to detect a surface, and then fire forward from the player towards the horizontal position of the first trace's impact. This will give you a more reliable way of detecting ledges, as it actually addresses the previous fault. If you fire another forward trace above the ledge position, you can double check to make sure you're not actually hitting a wall, and fire another forward trace a bit below to determine whether or not the player is doing a braced or free hang. This foundation also laid the groundwork for a new approach to vaulting, a method I call smart vaulting. Previously, vaulting worked by determining how tall an object was and how thick it was, and then moving the player to the ledge to perform the vault. This felt sticky, magnetic, and overall pretty bad. Now, due to the ledge trace being much closer to the player and firing down rather than forward, smart vaulting takes center stage. By determining where the ledge is relative to the parts of the player's body such as feet, knees, hips, chest, etc., and doing extra traces to determine the thickness of the object, among things, smart vaulting takes the information provided and determines whether the player will do a monkey vault, speed vault, ledge grab, or a variety of different mantle operations. It looks and feels a lot more natural. Another noticeable change to the parkour comes in the form of the tic-tac, or horizontal wall run. After the January 2022 demo, I received quite a lot of feedback that the wall running animation looks like a spider falling off of a wall, which, I'll be honest, was pretty damn funny, and also a great source of inspiration. Now, R's wall run is controlled via timeline in Unreal, and as such can actually change values over the course of the action. So I created a variable called the wall run confidence, and use it to inform an animation blend space and meta sound of changes to their outputs. As R runs along a wall, she has a standard wall run animation and pretty confident sounds. But as the arc peaks and gravity takes over, she loses confidence and begins to fall off the wall, resulting in an animation and sound switch. It's a small detail kind of thing, but I feel it's surprisingly helpful to inform players that their time on the wall is almost up. While there's still bugs and things to polish in the parkour system, I'll be working on those throughout the entirety of development, and it's about time I focus on other things. For example, arc and swim. There's not much to say on this topic at the moment, but it will be used to softly punish players for missing a jump while providing new exploration opportunities and verticality to the map. Don't worry though, the ocean surface will still act like concrete if you fall from high enough, and you probably won't want to find yourself taking a leisurely swim when the storm rolls in. Another new feature is the choker light, which I have yet to create a model for. The functionality, however, is there. Not only will it help you see your surroundings at night or in unlit interiors of the city, but it can also reveal startling secrets and puzzles if you toggle to UV mode. To rapid fire a few more additions, I've also been working on interaction and item pickups, though there's not a whole lot to say on that one at the moment. I've also begun the journey to combat with directional dodging. While it's not visible here as I'm reworking the visuals, dodging does use a stamina bar. Functionally, dodging is done by tapping space while moving in any cardinal direction that isn't forward. It is a bit dodgy though, pun fully intended, but they shouldn't be that hard to take care of. On the art side, you'll notice I redid those 2 HVAC units from the last devlog. I also made about 20 more and they all share a single 2K atlas, so how's that for optimization? I also created fences, skyways, rails, a set of catwalks, and an array of building modules. Ara also has a new look, which will help inform the designs of other characters. The overall goal and aesthetic I'm going for is to modernize Y2K fashion with an integration of sports and swimwear. Like the changes to the game scenario, it should be pretty interesting. Back in 2020, my girlfriend and I went to the theaters to watch Makoto Shinkai's Weathering with You, and while I won't get too much into spoilers, there's a particular set of scenes that really stuck with me. They portrayed Tokyo during the aftermath of a biblical flood, and the images were haunting. There's a lot to unpack in such a situation, as floods such as that one can be brutal mass casualty events that stick with survivors and people of the affected country for a long time. Such crises can fundamentally change how people approach life and those around them for generations to come. From a narrative standpoint, it's a post-apocalyptic scenario that hasn't been explored all too often, yet it's far more likely to occur than, say, zombies. From the game design standpoint, a flooded city beautifully removes the necessity to fill streets of a city with crowds of cars and pedestrians, which can be quite a pain to do efficiently. It also creates an environment that encourages alternate methods of traversal, such as parkour. Needless to say, Weathering with You struck a chord of inspiration in my brain 4 years ago, and pivoting Eternal Blue to a sunken city scenario was something I internally wrestled with for quite some time. Regardless, that's when everything changed. In the original story for Eternal Blue, which predates me even downloading Unreal or watching Weathering with You, the city is hit by a massive tsunami at the end. Whether that flood permanently changed the city or not was undecided at the time, but under the pivoted direction, the city is flooded before the story begins. Most of the story's developments in this new direction have been relatively recent, but the bones have been baking in my brain for quite some time. I don't want to talk too much about it right now, as this video has been going on for quite a while, but I'll leave you with the basics. Eternal Blue is no longer a crime drama. It's an investigation. A dark, harrowing quest to track down a vicious serial killer that has been evading the police for several years. The case is cold, and much of the evidence has been lost to time and weather. But the killer has become active again, slaughtering victims in broad daylight with no witnesses and nothing to trace back to them. But when Ara is contracted by the police to smuggle hard copies of old case files from a gang-infested abandoned apartment complex, she discovers that the killer's first suspected victim is none other than her mother, who was murdered 20 years before in the middle of a refugee site during the city's second flood. It's an event that left Ara traumatized at 5 years old, and an event that caused her father to drift away, blinded by rage and a thirst for revenge. Now, with the case resurrected, Ara has a new opportunity to help the police capture her mother's killer, and in the process, bring the light back to her father's eyes. It took a long while to get to this point, especially with inconsistent free time and other factors, but despite the disappointingly little progress I've made in the past few years, I feel confident in saying this. The parkour is done. Sure, it still has bugs and there are other quirks and edge cases that come with it, but again, realistically speaking, I'll be ironing out those for the entirety of the project. At this point in time though, it's important that I move on to the game's other pillars so I'm not stuck running in place and risking never finishing the game. My current focus is figuring out what's next. I'm tinkering away at the interaction system and making changes to the user interface, but it's probably about time I prepare to tackle the combat system, which has by far been the thing I've dreaded the most in this project. Hopefully it won't be too difficult though. I already have a few ideas of how to implement what I have in mind, so fingers crossed that combat will be in a good spot and, well, a significantly shorter time frame than the parkour would be nice. Anyways, I apologize for the long wait. Eternal Blue isn't dead and 2 years between devlogs isn't the best look, but ideally it won't be that way in the future. I don't know when I'll do another devlog, hopefully a month or so, but I don't want to make a lot of promises there. But when I do make another video, it will most likely be a lot smaller, or at least until the combat is ready to show off. Well, I hope to see more feedback from everyone soon, and I hope everyone enjoys the new parkour beta build linked in the description below. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more, don't forget to like and subscribe, or join the Discord if you want those live updates. Until next time, later.